Well, I didn't have 0-0 on my bingo card, only the third 0-0 draw in Unai Emery's Aston Villa tenure, and for the second straight Premier League game, we were reduced to 10 men because of an ill-advised ball. Presented by the mildly annoyed Villa fanatics at 24/7 Services, let's review Villa 0, Newcastle 0. Greetings from the parlor, and how great is it to have football back? I mean, before a ball is even kicked, it's about friends, family, pints, anticipation, and then afterwards, celebration or commiserations. You know, a year ago, we were better than Arsenal in our home opener. We should have won that game, and we lost. Had we held on for a 0-0 draw, that point would have been enough for Champions League. There was a little bit more clarity on the UEFA SCR situation over the weekend, which Unai Emery kind of shrugged off a little bit, which I appreciate in this no-excuse culture he's built. But we're going to have to be extremely clever and shrewd over the final days of the window, and Ramsey's gone, Bailey's next, maybe Moreno. Even Leander Dendoncker could be gone to Real Oviedo, which would be really helpful. One thing I've not seen anybody comment on or report on is how we got into this situation in the first place, because the biggest liability of any club is the contract of a player or a staff member. And I just wonder if there's room to maybe sharpen that up a little bit, or maybe we could help ourselves by reviewing that process and being really lean in that regard. What's annoying about our situation is when you compare it with the gluttonous spending by those around us. I'm talking specifically about Chelsea, because their ground is similar in size to ours. You know, they have no shirt sponsor, and yet they are able to overhaul their squad every single year. And they did themselves some favors by winning Gianni Infantino's Summer Invitational, which they qualified for by winning the Champions League 4 years ago.
I'm Matt.
And I'm Nathan.
And you're watching the Only Trinity Show. Up the Villa!
Matt and Nathan there in Samir's Speaker's Corner, kind of like the Villa on Saturday, just that little bit off. But it's opening day, early kickoff, that's to be expected. And I love early kickoffs because they're peaceful and quiet, even after a 4 a.m. alarm. I said the other day I didn't think Villa was going to throw up a stinker on opening day. If it looks like a stinker and smells like a stinker, it was probably a stinker. And I was also annoyed on Saturday because I got a Dan Byrne from the oven door making bacon. Alex Dutton is once again this show's video correspondent at Villa Park, and the stats backed up why relief was the predominant feeling at the final whistle. And it wasn't necessarily a dominant Newcastle performance, but a pretty confident one away from home, and one of those games where both managers will feel dissatisfied, maybe more so Eddie Howe. I thought this was a very intriguing additional stat. Total sprints, almost 40 more by the Magpies, translating into almost a kilometer more in distance covered by the visitors. Does that mean we were working less hard, or were we just trying to be more efficient with our running? This will always be an issue on opening day, and that is the reality of getting back into real Premier League football. It's a shock to the players' system, and you could see that as the game wore on. I mean, the first 20 minutes were very intense, and then it started to fizzle out a little bit. And for Villa, they had 9 players who went 90 minutes, and for half an hour, they were playing with a man down. So to actually get through that unscathed was probably a positive. Key moment number 3, Debutant duel. Among the 22 starters on Saturday, only 2 of them were summer signings, which may speak a little bit to how difficult recruitment has been this summer for both of our clubs. The newbies, Marco Bizot and Anthony Elanga, would come together with a chance to play hero less than 3 minutes into this game, and that's why this could actually be a lot higher up the scale. How the Swede even gets into that position in the first place is a bit calamitous, with Mings and Dean getting tangled up, but then you're thinking, oh, here we go. The heart sinks. Last year, 17 times we conceded the first goal on the first attempt on target, but less than 3 minutes in, our new summer signing endears himself in a big way with the Holt end behind him. On that note, let's do the player ratings now, because Marco Bizot was by far my man of the match. 3 saves, 3 high claims, 12 recoveries. His passing accuracy, short and long, felt a bit panicked at times under the Newcastle press, and you know Eddie Howe's instructions were to put the new keeper under pressure. After that, though, not very high numbers. Onana on his birthday showed some signs. Matty Cash made a couple of important blocks in this game, but he was also involved in a moment he'd rather forget. I'll talk about that later. Ollie Watkins is always going to be a nuisance to the opponent, but our biggest problem was our inability to make passes under pressure, reflected in the 73% team average.
I'm a little bit nervous. First game, we're always a little bit slow to get going, but we've had a pretty good pre-season. My gut feeling is maybe a draw. But it'd be nice if we could just go out there and smash them.
Is Matt from Tamworth a bookie? Because he pretty much got that spot on. Speaking of predictions, I'll bet Alex from Alex's Barbershop in Sutton Coldfield is a relieved man today because he made this pledge after Painter J predicted 3-1 to the Villa.
Yes, man, 3-1. Everybody in Sutton Coldfield, free haircut. There you go.
Hey!
Up the Villa!
It's all fun and games until 40 people are lined up outside the shop on a Monday morning. Now, 24/7 Services completely renovated Alex's barber shop back when there may not have been as many customers or clients about. And they did this job in 2 weeks while Alex was still able to cut hair. Now, traffic and business at the shop is buzzing to the point where there is serious discussion over opening a second location. If your business needs a refresh, contact the 24/7 Services team because they'll be more ready than Villa were on Saturday. Use the details in the description of this video and make sure you tell them that you watched the Holy Trinity show. A couple of honorable mention moments, including Villa's only big chance in the game, which fell to Boubacar Kamara, and I realize he's a very important player for us, but imagine if Bouba could just add 2 or 3 goals even per season, like in this moment where John McGinn whips in a perler of a ball, and with 4-headed goals in preseason, you just wonder what would have happened had Watkins been in that position. And then our best set piece of the game captured by Aduts, and nobody attacks the back post. I mean, what a ball from Yuri Tielemans in behind the Newcastle defense into that wonderful area that nobody attacks or gambles on. I mean, Nick Pope is rooted to his line. Key moment number 2, Ezri's expulsion. Any hope we had of building off some of that second half momentum was extinguished with the expulsion of a player whose backup is right now Lamar Bogard. And with the greatest of respect to Lamar, who had a great preseason, is he ready? And then there's this player we're chasing at Toulouse named JD Camveau, who apparently was sensational on Saturday. But at 19 years of age, is he ready? And by the way, Villa hasn't followed up with the initial bid to Toulouse. This huge moment, which scuppers Unai Emery's plan of, I think, trying to wear Newcastle down and then just going for it in the last 25 minutes, maybe with some fresh legs, influenced as it often is by something that happens 7 seconds earlier and in our attacking third. I mean, this ball should be testing Nick Pope, and I hate piling on players, including Matt Cash. Unfortunately, he plays the worst ball that he can behind everybody. Are his teammates positioned necessarily the best? That's up for debate, but this is what we call a transitional moment. Now, you know me, I'm not one to pile on to our Polish Cafu, but unfortunately, his woefully short back pass to Emi Martinez last season at Old Trafford kind of helped contribute to the financial quandary we're in right now. And in the Premier League and all major leagues, so many goals are scored from a change in possession and then a transition or a counterattack. And that's because the team that turns the ball over is often imbalanced, as we were. And that part is not Matt Cash's fault. This is as dangerous as the square ball in midfield that is cut out. We have to play this ball behind the Newcastle line, and there are targets to aim at. Big ones like Onana, Rogers, and Watkins. I will say, it's not a great set of runs. These runs need to be staggered because they're all in a line. I mean, if you miss one, you're going to miss them all. But this is Matty Cash's greatest limitation, his inability to play consistently accurate crosses into the danger area. And we still have not addressed this after all these years. Nedeljkovic deemed too inexperienced. Garcia could be moving on in this window, and the latest candidate could be this Hector Fort. And as much as the scouts love and fawn all over Fort because of his game intelligence and his athleticism. He just turned 19. I mean, is this really the solution right now? If he can't get into Barcelona, is he ready for the Prem? And so we still haven't resolved this issue, and it feels like we're just kicking the can down the road again. And I'm not convinced in Lamar Bogart in this role either, simply from accurate crosses and attacking standpoints. And the number one big issue that defined Villa 0, Newcastle 0, big game bust. We all knew this was going to be a tough encounter to start the season. We are such close rivals in every single way, and it would have been a great tone setter to start the season. But if there is one thorn in the rose that is Unai Emery's tenure, it's our tendency to fall short in the big occasion games. I watched the Olympiacos story from a couple of years ago, another great example of how we kind of fell flat at a really important hurdle, even though the team was shattered at that time. Last season, there were at least 4 examples of the same. And in this SCR reality we're in, Unai Emery is going to probably have to rely on many of the players that he inherited when he first arrived here. My question is Unai Emery too loyal sometimes? Like many times over the past 3 seasons, the approach to the game felt very safe, conservative, pragmatic, and without some kind of wild card thrown at the opponent. In fact, I think that was the first time an Unai Emery Aston Villa team had failed to generate a single shot on target in a half, because we had none in the first. And contrast that to last year in this fixture. Ollie Watkins scores on his first shot and hits the woodwork twice in the first half. I got the 11 spot on Saturday, with the exception of Dean for Maatsen and Mings for Torres. It felt like we were accommodating players by putting them in positions that they hadn't played a whole lot in, like Yuri Tielemans, who simply is not quick enough to keep up with Ollie Watkins in the pocket. And by the way, he had the fewest touches of any player over those 90 minutes, which means we kind of wasted his ability. Would he have been better off playing deeper for the long ball threat, like with Pau Torres? Because Newcastle at times played a very high line. John McGinn will turn 31 in October, and on his day, our beloved Meatball, with his bombastic style, can win fouls and recoveries. But on Saturday, McGinn lost 5 of 6 ground duels and didn't win a single tackle while going 1 for 3 on dribbling attempts. We have Daniel Malen now that can cause problems. Evan Gason can play on either flank, and yet Unai Emery chose to stick with 8 of the players that he inherited when he arrived here, and it would have been 9 had Emi Martinez not been suspended. Morgan Rogers' attempt at a late rampage in stoppage time where he stumbles over the ball beautifully summed up our afternoon. And also, the biggest part of Rodgers' game that still needs refinement, decision-making, moving the ball a little bit earlier. Mind you, he looked dead on his feet at that stage. Might Ian Maatsen's pace have challenged 34-year-old Kieran Trippier a little bit more in this match? Or might Pau Torres' long ball threat have benefited Ollie Watkins, because our accurate long balls were poor? 29% for Villa, 49% for Newcastle. Listen, I love, appreciate, respect, and admire Unai Emery unconditionally, but that doesn't mean we can't debate or question some of his decisions, even with the benefit of 2020 hindsight, especially when there is a theme emerging.
I saw the Ozzy Osbourne tribute, which I think is great because he's from just down the road and he's a Villa fan. And he was an icon of heavy metal music, and you can't help but love him. The murals on the steps of the Holt End, that's the way I walked in from the station. Villa Park always looks fantastic. It's a fortress, and a lot of away fans I speak to always say it's their favourite stadium to come to.
Next up, Brentford. There's another club that has had a very difficult summer, losing a number of key individuals, including their coach. And if you're a Brentford fan, I think there's reason to be nervous when you lose that many key people all in one summer. Now, we have had Brentford's number of late, including away, where Ollie Watkins has been a nemesis, but we now have to figure out a solution for right center back, whether that's going to be Lamar Bogart or an all-lefty combo of Mings and Torres. Brentford were soundly beaten by Forest at the City Ground on Sunday, wild watching Jordan Henderson stumbling around the Premier League again, and no Yohan Wissa in the squad. You do wonder if he'll even be a B by the time Saturday rolls around. But Brentford did sign Ouattara from Bournemouth to bolster their strike force. And by the way, if you're going to the G-Tech in London on Saturday and you have a decent phone, well, I'd love for you to be the video correspondent. Here's the email. Send me a line. I'd like to share the love around on away days this year. If you're like me, you probably had conflicting feelings after that game on Saturday. Obviously, disappointment on one hand, then relief on another, and also the realization that stepping back onto the Premier League treadmill is always going to be difficult, especially against a team like Newcastle United that we're so close with in every way. No 3 points, no whiskey toast. That's just the way it's going to be. So until Brentford, be well. Thank you for watching. And obviously, up the mighty Villa.